Okay, so today's class is about statistical mechanics. Thank you, sir. We didn't knew that. Yes. So we were talking about ensembles, and two ensembles we did talked about. Now I'll be needing your help here. Uh, just for a quite quick recap, which of two ensembles did we talked about?
Microcanonical and canonical.
Okay, microcanonical and canonical. And which were the conditions? We did talked about these two guys, but today we are going to talk about grand canonical. So there were a few conditions. So let's have a quick recap of yesterday's class. There were a few conditions for these ensembles, for microcanonical ensembles. For each and every system must be defined by N, V, and E. So total number is constant. Volume of each and every system in the ensemble is constant. Total energy of each and every system in the ensemble is constant. And to keep these three guys constant, the system must not exchange anything with each other. Okay, now there comes the second ensemble, because this microcanonical in this microcanonical ensemble we needed to have isolated system. No system in real life is isolated, and we needed to monitor energy in this microcanonical ensemble, and we do not have any instrument which can directly measure energy, or we do not have a good control or monitoring over the energy. So we shifted our focus to canonical ensemble. One question was that, do we still use microcanonical ensemble? Yes, we do use microcanonical ensemble. Just like in yesterday's example, if some of you were staying after the class, the example that I gave you a day before yesterday, that you have four balls and you have to arrange themselves in two different boxes. We did that example. In that example, all those microstates were not interacting with each other. So it was example of microcanonical ensemble, that you had total 16 microstates in that case, 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. So you had total of 16 microstates, and all those 16 microstates are independent. They are not interacting with anybody, or their energy is constant. For each microstate, their energy is constant. So that was an example of microcanonical ensemble. We do solve some easy problems using microcanonical ensemble, but this guy is more relevant today and more relevant in statistical mechanics, because in this guy we have to monitor temperature only. And if in this configuration, the systems of the ensemble, the subsystems of the ensemble, do not exchange anything with each other. So this is the case. Yes, and there is something called grand canonical ensemble, which we will study today. So there is no need to talk about it right now. And in this canonical ensemble, it was the temperature which was constant for each system. This constant temperature is really easy to monitor and really easy to keep. Just connect your system with the heat reservoir of infinite heat capacity. Heat reservoir will maintain its own temperature, and anything connected to it, the heat reservoir will maintain the temperature of everything. So just connect your system to heat reservoir and it will do the rest to keep the temperature constant. And you can easily measure the temperature as well. So temperature, you can measure it with thermometer. So this ensemble was better compared to microcanonical ensemble, and you can calculate quite a few things using this ensemble, which is the part of your syllabus in next semester. So you will be calculating the partition functions of this ensemble for different physical cases, where two particles are rotating for a diatomic molecule, suppose, or for a spin system where there is a spin in electrons. So if you keep two or three electrons in a system, then you'll be calculating its partition function and probability that it will have this much amount of energy or not. So you'll be calculating quite a few things in the next semester. In this semester, we are just studying the weapons of the topic. Grand canonical ensemble you will study. In yesterday's class, I made one error, just one error, while I was talking about degeneracy. And this is also a typing error in your book. So that's why I made that error. When we are talking about degeneracy, I told that degeneracy is G alpha. It means that how many number of microstate have same amount of energy E alpha. And when degeneracy was G alpha, then the probability P alpha, I wrote it like this: E raised to minus beta E alpha upon Z. But in Z also you have to multiply each and every component with this factor. So here I did not multiply it with this. In your book also they have not multiplied it with this, but this is the correct expression. This is the correct expression, not the one I wrote in the previous class. So this was the small error. You can change it in your book also and here also. This is the correct example expression, not the previous one. So if you take degeneracy into account, this is the probability that you will find the system in the state with energy E alpha. Okay, and why do we find this probability? If you want to know this answer, stay after the class. Okay, so somebody is there. Okay, now we will be starting today's class. So we'll be starting today's class, in which we are just starting our class with something called the fluctuations in canonical ensemble. Okay, so we studied something in canonical ensemble. We studied what is its basic. We studied that what is the probability that if a system we consider it in canonical ensemble, what is the probability that the system will be in alpha energy E alpha state, what will be its probability. We calculated that. In that process we also taken into consideration degeneracy, and we taken out something called partition function, which we'll use in next semester, so it is not a problem for now. But now I want to know that since there are so many systems in canonical ensemble, so many systems, each and every system has same temperature, but the temperature is same for each and every system. But what is the problem is, for each and every system the temperature is same, but they are constantly exchanging energies with each other. So if you just consider your focus onto just one system, you consider your focus onto this single system, then its energy will be continuously changing, and that is what you call the fluctuation in energy. I hope you know what does this word fluctuation means. That normally, what is the fluctuation? Normally at this time, maybe you are asleep in your house. Okay, so you are sleeping. Oh, very good. And suddenly a teacher like me comes and tells you that there is a class at 2:30 and you have to be awake. Now your parents, if your parents sees you, then they will be surprised. Oh, you are studying at this hour while you are sleeping every day. So this is the fluctuation in your behavior. So in the same manner, we can say that there is something called fluctuation in energy as well. So because all of these systems in canonical ensemble exchange energy with each other, if you just focus your consideration onto one system, its energy will be changing continuously, and its energy will be changing. So we want to know what is the fluctuation in its energy. So this is what our purpose is. Now how do we define this fluctuation mathematically? Okay, so let me give you a simple example. Okay, all of you, all in your class, all the students in your class might have the age of 20 years or 21 years. Might, I am just talking about a general scenario. So maybe suppose there are 50 guys in your class, 50 students in your class, and all 50 of you students, what you are doing is, what is your age? Suppose that for 24 students the age is 20, and for 26 students the age is 21. Okay, so we are talking about this is number of students and this is your age. So what you are taking is, you just take average of all these numbers. So you want to know the average age of the class. Okay, you want to know the average age of the class. What you will do is, you will multiply 24 with 20. There are 24 guys with the age 20 and 26 guys with the age 21, and you will divide it with the total number of students in the class, and the answer eventually comes out. Can anybody help me with this? Okay, the answer eventually comes out is 20.52 years. So this is the average age of the class. This is the average age of your whole class. Now, what do we call fluctuation? None of you guys have this much age. This is the average age. Now I'll take each and every one of you. I'll write your age in points, of course. How many months older are you, and how many days older are you? I'll write your age in some points after this. So I want to know the average age of you guys. So if I want to know the average age, I'll take each and every one of you, and if I want to know the fluctuation in your age, then I will be, if your age is J and the average age of the class is average J, this is the symbol of average J, average age of the class is average J, then this is going to be called fluctuation in the age of the class for individuals. कि हर एक बंदे को उठाया, उसका एज पूछा, उसका एज यहाँ लिखा, this is the average age which is constant for each and every guys for the class. And Eventually, this is the fluctuation. For each and every student, I'll be having this number. This number we will call delta J. This number, what we'll call it delta J. This is called fluctuation. But now, after each and every guy we have considered, now we want to know what is the average fluctuation in the age. So our purpose is average fluctuation in the age. So average fluctuation in the age, how will you define it? You just take average of this delta J. And if you take the average of delta J, it is J minus average of J. And this, since this average of J is just a number, its average will be itself. And this average of J will become average of J. If you apply average on both these numbers, the first will become average of J and second will become itself. Second will stay itself because it is already a constant number. So constant number का average वो खुद होता है. And this number will be 0. So if you want to calculate the average fluctuation of the ages in your class, it will come out to be 0 always. आपने कुछ भी special case consider नहीं किया. If you take this case, यहाँ से अगर आप fluctuation calculate करने की कोशिश करोगे, the average age will come out to be 0 always. But now you want to know the average fluctuation, so there is a method called RMS value. You just take the square of this number, then you take the mean, and then you root it. That is called the average fluctuation. So what you do is, instead of this, so you don't use this, you just first square this delta J, and then you take the average, and if needed, then you take the square root. If you take the square root, it is called standard deviation, but if you don't take the square root, this is known as the fluctuation. Now this, how will it look like? It is J square minus 2J average J plus average J square and whole average, because what I did was I just squared this term. So it is A square minus 2AB plus B square. So A square minus 2AB plus B square. Now if you give average to each and every guy, it is J square minus 2J whole square minus 2 average of J whole square plus J square. So this guy and this guy will change, will be subtracted, and that's why the fluctuations formula comes out to be this. So this is how we define fluctuation mathematically. There was a problem if we directly define this as the fluctuation, there is a problem. This is the fluctuation, but if we define it directly, then we cannot calculate average fluctuation at any cost. So we want to know the average fluctuation. So this is the case where how we calculate the average fluctuation. Ideally, if you want to know that from the mean value, how much these values are deviating, that is called standard deviation. So standard deviation, STD, is represented as sigma, and it is generally represented as this. This is called standard deviation. You will be talking about this a lot more in quantum physics, where there is uncertainty principle. So there you will be talking about the standard deviation so many times. Okay, you will be talking about it, don't worry. But this is the actual, this thing is called standard deviation. It tells you that from the mean value how much these things are deviated. Here what we did is, if we directly took the average of delta J, it was 0, but now we squared delta J and then took the average and then took the root. So eventually it is giving you the mode of fluctuation. So this is one way of calculating the fluctuation. But in our course, we call this guy fluctuation, not a standard deviation. We'll be talking about this, the square of standard deviation, which we'll call fluctuation. So if you want to know the fluctuation in energy, we want to know energy square average minus average energies whole square. This is what we want to know. Okay, and I hope you know difference between these two guys. This average, this is the square of average, where average was taken first, and this is where you square each and every number and then you take the average of all those squared numbers. So these two are different guys, and you just take subtraction of both of them and you will get the fluctuation. So what is our purpose? We want to know that if energy of any single system is changing in canonical ensemble, how will it fluctuate? So what is this number going to look like in canonical ensemble for energy? This is our purpose. So average value of any function can be written like this: alpha f of alpha p of alpha, where p of alpha is the probability of state alpha that system probability that the system will be in state alpha is given by p of alpha, and f of alpha is this function. So if you want to take average value of any function, you will do it like this: f alpha p alpha. From where did it came? It came from here only. Came from here only. If you want to know how is it, then just stay after the class and ask. Okay, this is simple formula known by mathematicians. Uh, so okay, let me give you a simple example. I can't do it. Okay, so if there are 5 students, let me give you a simple example, not for 50 students, but if there are 5 students, there are 3 students of age 20 years, and there are 2 students of age 21 years. In your classroom, there are 5 students. Now, if you pick one of the students, what is the probability that its age will be 20? Can anybody tell me? If you just pick one student randomly from your class, what is the probability that its age will be? This is showing you alpha, the state. Age is a kind of a state where you want to see your particle. So what is the probability that the age of that particular student will be 5, will be 20? What will be the probability if you put randomly one student? Can anybody tell me?
3/5.
Yes, it is 3 by 5, and for 21 it is 2 by 5. Favorable cases upon total cases. This is the probability. So this is the probability 3 by 5 and 2 by 5 of getting these ages. Okay, I will tell you. Let's take the average of age as we did it ago. So if average of age, I will represent age by j. I'll represent age by j. So this is the average of this probability of getting the value j. So average of j, this simple example from Griffiths, I am taking this from Griffiths quantum mechanics book. So just for the basic understanding of probability, there is a beautiful chapter written in Griffiths by quantum mechanics. If you are really interested in learning probability, go there. But otherwise, our purpose will be sufficient from this formula. So I'm telling you how this formula came. This is my purpose right now. So if you take average value of, if you want to calculate average value of age of the whole class, then there are 3 guys with age 20 and 2 guys with age 21, and then you divide it with the total number of guys. So how will you take the age? You take first student, you take the second student, you take the third student, you take the fourth student, you take the fifth student, and then you average. This is the way how you average. Now I wrote it like this. Why did I wrote it like this? Because I can write it like this: 3 by 5 into 20 plus 2 by 5 into 21. So now you can see that this is nothing but sigma probability of getting the value of j into the value of j. This is what I wrote it there. So this is it. This is the probability of getting value 20 and into the value 20. So this is how you can calculate average value of any function. Now in case of canonical ensemble, average value of energy, how will you write it? Average value of energy, you will write it like this: energy in alpha state into probability of alpha state. Now, just yesterday we calculated that energy in alpha state, we'll write it as energy in alpha state, but E alpha was e raised to minus beta E alpha over sigma alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha. Are we all okay on this? Are we all agreeing on this? This is how we'll calculate energy. So yes, the question is answered here. Why we were talking about probability? Because if we know the probability, we can calculate average values of energy. Okay, why we are talking about probability everywhere we went? Because if we can calculate probability, we can calculate average value of any function, be it energy, be it temperature, be it pressure, anything. We just want to know the pressure or temperature, you just put it for each and every individual states and multiply it with probability of getting that individual state, and you will get the average value of that parameter over all the ensembles, and that will be the average measurement that you are going to be getting if you perform the experiment. Okay, so here the answer is that why you are talking about probability all the time? Because of this. Because if you know the probability, you can know average values of energy. Okay, so this was E alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha sigma. Okay, simple mathematics. Now, okay, you can take this guy as Z because it was partition function yesterday. So it is E alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha over Z. Z is partition function, think about the partition function. Now, if you want to do simple mathematics and if you want to find out minus 1 by Z del Z by del beta, if you want to find out this, then what will it be? It is minus 1 by Z and del by del beta. What is Z? Z is sigma alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha. We are assuming that there is no degeneracy, of course, in this whole calculation. There is no parameter G alpha equal to 1. We are assuming this. But if you want to know the average value of energy in canonical ensemble, this is how we will get it. We want to now differentiate it with respect to beta. So what will be the answer? If we differentiate it with respect to beta, minus 1 by z will be here, and sigma will be there of alpha. If you differentiate this with respect to beta, what should be the answer? Anybody? This is simple method differentiation. Anybody of you can tell me? If you differentiate, just take del by del beta inside and just differentiate this guy only. E raised to minus beta E alpha by del beta.
Minus beta e raised to minus beta e alpha.
You are differentiating with respect to beta, not with respect to E alpha.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Can anybody? Yes. What will be the upgraded answer then? If you are differentiating with respect to beta?
Minus e alpha e raised to minus beta e alpha.
Yes. So it will be, the answer will be that minus E alpha into e raised to minus beta E alpha. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. This I know that you guys can do this. I don't hope, I know that you guys can do this. Now this minus comes out and it becomes plus. So this guy, what does it become? Over all states, it is E alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha. And since z is constant, you can take it inside the summation as well. So it becomes this minus 1 by z del z by del beta becomes this. And did you saw this guy some time ago? It is nothing but the average value of energy that we wrote it here. So this is nothing but the average value of energy. So you can write average value of energy by this number. That is what I wanted to prove. Okay, so what you can do is you can write average value of energy by minus 1 by z del z by del beta. Okay. Here the first step comes. When I said yesterday that if you know the partition function, you can calculate anything. Now, if you want to calculate the average value of energy, if you will just differentiate partition function with del by del beta, you will get it. It is that simple. It is so powerful mathematical tool that if you just know z, you don't have to do this summation and all those things, which looks very scary to me as a not so good in mathematics guy. But if you know this z, then what you can do is just simply do the differentiation del z by del beta and just divide it by z and multiply it with minus. You will get instantaneously the average value of energy. This is how you get it. So this is the average value of energy. My purpose is not to get average value of energy. Remember, my purpose is to get that fluctuation. And now if we can do it like this, then we can calculate average value of energy E square. Average value of any function is similar. So here I can write E alpha square into P alpha, and P alpha is e raised to minus beta E alpha upon Z. So this is average value of E alpha square. Now, if you can calculate 1 by Z del square Z by del beta square, if you can calculate this, now can you give me this answer? 1 by Z and del by del beta and del Z by del beta. This is del Z by del beta. This means this. Can anybody give me the answer? Del by del beta, and del Z by del beta looked like this: 1 upon Z into sigma E alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha. It looked like this, if I am not mistaken. Oh, there was no 1 by Z, sorry. There was no 1 by Z. It looked like this. If you will do del Z by del beta, what is Z? Z is partition function, which is nothing but this mathematical number, beta by E alpha. It is just a mathematical number. It does not tell you anything. Okay. Yes. So e raised to minus beta E alpha, and if you differentiate it with respect to beta, there will be 1 E alpha minus E alpha will be out. So I just took out this minus. Now if you differentiate it again, then again there will be minus E alpha. Now it will be plus E alpha. So it is 1 by Z. 1 by Z del by del. Now del by del beta is operated on this. That's why we are going to get alpha E alpha square e raised to minus beta E alpha. And this looks like this. So we can write that average value of E square is nothing but 1 by Z del square Z by del beta square. You can write it like this. So we just calculated this and we came up with this. Okay, so we got average value of energy as minus 1 by z del z by del beta. We got average value of energy squared as this. Now we want to calculate the fluctuation energy, which was energy squared average, delta E squared average, which is in square in the inside and square on the outside. I always confuse between which of the two to take first. Otherwise, the answer will be negative. I always get confused in it. So how do I remember this? I can always derive it just by taking the square and everything. But how do I remember it now? Because this quantity comes in physics so many times. How do I remember it? I just write it as square in inside, then square in outside. So square in inside and square in outside. That is how I remember it. Otherwise, you can directly derive it just as I derived it here. It's that simple. You can just take 2 steps derivation and you can reach there. But I remember it like this because it comes in physics almost in so many cases. So what is average value of E square? This is equation number 2. Here, this guy is equation number 1. What is E square's average? 1 by z del square z by del beta square minus this energy E's whole square is 1 by z square del z by del beta whole square. It is 1 by z square del z by del beta whole square. Okay. Now, if you have any question, kindly ask. So you can write this as del by del beta of ln z. You can write this as del by del beta of ln z, and okay, del square by del beta square of ln z. I'm sorry. You can write this term as del square by del beta square of ln z. It is second derivative of ln z. If you take the second derivative, let me do it for you guys. I think you can do it. Okay, so if you take the first derivative of ln z, it is 1 by z del z by del beta. And now if you take the another derivative of this term, it will look like this: 1 by minus 1 by z square del z by del beta whole square minus plus 1 by z into del square z by del beta square. And it is nothing but this term, so you can write it as the second derivative. So I did second derivative here. There is del by del beta into first derivative. This is the answer. So you can write it like this. Now what I am doing is I am just doing the first derivative. So first derivative of ln z is 1 by z del z by del beta. And this term 1 by z del z by del beta, it looked like this, but negative average value of energy, because 1 by z del z by del beta is negative value of energy. So I want to find out the fluctuation in energy in terms of energy, because we cannot visualize this partition function. It is mathematical quantity, so we want to find some physics in it. This is the answer actually. This is the answer, but we want to visualize this number. So to visualize this number, what we really want to do is we want to actually calculate, we want to write this in terms of energy, average value of energy, so that we can visualize this number. So that's why fluctuation in energy is written as delta E square. It is given by minus del by del beta into average value of energy. This is the fluctuation in energy in canonical ensemble. This is the fluctuation in energy. Okay, so this is the fluctuation in energy in canonical ensemble. I just wrote it from this. Okay, simple. It was simple mathematics. Now we are moving towards physics. Why we did so much mathematics? So let's find out that how much this fluctuation is in some specific cases. But before we do that, since we know that beta is 1 by kt, we want to change this del by del beta in terms of del by del t, because differentiation with respect to temperature might give us something else. So beta is 1 by kt. So d beta is equal to minus 1 by kt squared dt. And if you put this in place of d beta, so you will get, what you are going to get is the fluctuation in energy. What you are going to get is this fluctuation in energy squared is nothing but kt squared del by del t energy, average value of energy. What I did was that I just wrote it like this. I just took differentiation both the sides. You can write it d beta, no problem. So I d beta, at the place of d beta, I wanted to change this dt, so I just placed dt and 1 by kt square went on the numerator, and this minus cancelled out with this minus. So average value of fluctuation in energy came out in this sense. And we know from the first law of thermodynamics that del E by del T is nothing but the specific heat capacity at constant volume. Now I know that all of you guys knowing that. So in terms of CV, this fluctuation in energy is written as KT square CV, because why? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Why? Because okay. Why? Because we know that CV is del E over del T. Okay. Now, any questions from your end? Any questions? If you don't know why CV is this, or any question. When I am saying that you know this, if you don't know this, you ask me question that, sir, we don't know this. You are telling that you know this, because the actual knowledge lies between, according to me, the actual knowledge is there in between. You know this and you have studied this. So you will study it in the future. So there are two lines which are really crucial in any teaching, that you will study this in the future, and when future comes, they say that you know this. So so if you, when I use any of these two lines, just if you don't know, just tell me. Okay, so any questions till this point? Any question? Okay, I hope everybody knows this. Okay, it's good. I mean, a good class. Yes. So fluctuation, from this we can say that fluctuation is dependent on CV. What is CV? CV is can anybody tell me what is specific heat? What is CV? The physical interpretation of CV. Can anybody tell me?
Sir, I don't remember correctly, but it was maybe the amount of energy required to change temperature of a substance by 1 degree in constant volume.
Yes. So this is what you, how much energy you need to supply to the system to just change its temperature by 1 degree. Okay. So this, in canonical ensemble, this fluctuation in energy is proportional to CV. So how much energy will be fluctuated? It is proportional to CV, and CV is the property of each and every substance. Each and every substance has different CV. Okay, each and every substance has different CV. So what happens is that the amount of heat you need to give to the system to change its temperature by just 1 degree centigrade or 1 Kelvin, the fluctuation of energy is proportional to that. So if the system has very high heat capacity, then fluctuation also in energy of the system is very high. Okay, what do you mean by very high? If you just to increase the temperature by 1 degree centigrade, you need to apply so much amount of heat, then the fluctuation energy will be high. As we can see easily, that just to increase 1 degree centigrade, if you have to supply 500 joule and 5000 joules. So increase, there are two different cases. In one case, if you want to increase the temperature by 1 degree centigrade, you have to supply 500 joule of heat energy, and other case it is 5000 joule heat of energy. In both of the cases, this, until you go till this point, the temperature of the substance will not increase until you go and supply this much energy. So if you are supplying 450 joules of energy, then in the substance with higher CV, there will be more fluctuation in energy because they are changing energy so much. And this, there is less fluctuation in energy because the substance will try to change its temperature using this energy. But for higher CV substance, the substance will try to increase its kinetic energy. All the particles will try to increase their kinetic energy using the energy if it is smaller than the actual energy required to change the temperature. So till then they will use it to change their kinetic energy. So if they are changing their kinetic energy, they will be colliding with each other, and if they are colliding with each other, they are transferring their energy onto each other. So there will be more fluctuation in energy. But if the CV is less, then energy fluctuation is less. Okay, so it is proportional to CV. Yes, that is one thing. And for ideal gas, we know that CV is 3 half kT. 3 half K, I'm sorry, 3 half Nk. If there are N particles in ideal gas, so this is 3 half Nk, because the energy or internal energy of the ideal gas is 3 half nkt, where n is the total number of particles in that ideal gas, k is the Boltzmann constant, and T is the temperature at which the ideal gas is kept. So for ideal gas, Cv is 3 half Nk. We are taking this particular example to understand what will be the fluctuation in energy in canonical ensemble. Okay, so Cv, this is 3 half Nk, and Cv is 3 half Nk, and is there any other thing? So it is kT square, no problem. Therefore, the fluctuation in energy is nothing but 3 half n k square t square. There was kt square, now k is multiplied, so k square t square. This is the fluctuation in energy, but mean fractional fluctuation. Since in error analysis also you don't talk about the error in the substance, this is known as error or fluctuation. You talk about the fractional error because you want to know with respect to this how much this changed. So here also you are talking about mean fractional fluctuation. So this is defined like this. Mean fractional fluctuation is defined like this. You divide it with energy square and then take the root. This is the average value of energy, which we can talk about as the actual reading, and here is the change in reading, and you are squaring on both the sides, so you are taking root over to know the mean fractional fluctuation. Its formula is this: mean fractional fluctuation for statistical mechanics. And if you want to know this, then you know this upper term, which is 3 half n square t square, n k square t square, divide by energy is 3 half kt and 3 half n kt, so 3 half square n square k square t square, and now you are taking the root, square root. So this number goes out, this number goes out, this n cancel out with this n, and 3 half cancels out. So it is 2 by 3 n square root. This is the mean fractional fluctuation. And in mean fractional fluctuation, number of particles are of the order of 10 to the power 18 somewhere, or 10, 20 or 23 or something. So if n is of the order of 10 to the power 18, then this mean fractional fluctuation will be of the order of 10 to the power, I have the number 10 to the power minus 9, something into 10 to the power minus 9. If this n is equal to 1, that means only one molecule is there in the complete box of ideal gas. If this n is equal to 1, then this mean fractional fluctuation is equal to 0.82. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Fluctuation, actually what does it mean? If this number is 0.82, that means that the error in T is 0.82 times the original value. So fluctuation is 0.82 times the original energy. So if original energy is 100 joule, then fluctuation in energy is of the order of 82 joules. मतलब कि जो आपके पास एक सिस्टम है, ठीक है, इसका मतलब क्या है मीन फ्रैक्शनल फ्लक्चुएशन का, कि आपके पास एक सिस्टम है, उसका एनर्जी फ्लक्चुएट होगा कि नहीं वो आपको चेक करना है इन कैनोनिकल एंसेंबल. एक्चुअली एंसेंबल में बहुत सारे सिस्टम्स है, उसमें से आप एक पर्टिकुलर सिस्टम पे फोकस कर रहे हो, वो सब सिस्टम के साथ एनर्जी अपना एक्सचेंज करे जा रहा है, ठीक है. तो यू वांट टू नो दैट how much energy will be fluctuated. You found out the formula mathematically, now you are looking it into its physical aspects, जिसके अंदर आप देख रहे हो कि मीन फ्रैक्शनल फ्लक्चुएशंस, व्हाट इज इट्स फिजिकल सिग्निफिकेंस. फिजिकल सिग्निफिकेंस क्या है? तो आपने आइडियल गैस का एग्जांपल लिया. आइडियल गैस में अगर एक ही मॉलिक्यूल होगा तो जो टोटल एनर्जी होगा उस एक मॉलिक्यूल का, उसके 82% जितना एरर होगा, फ्लक्चुएशन होगा उसमें, ठीक है. तो whenever you will measure the system will be in different energy states always, क्योंकि फ्लक्चुएशन का मतलब क्या है, एनर्जी कभी 18 जूल मिलेगा तो कभी 182 जूल मिलेगा. दिस इज कॉल्ड फ्लक्चुएशन. So you will measure any values of energy between 18 to 182 joules if you are taking only one molecule. So energy will be fluctuated of the total system. एक system है जिसमें एक ही molecule है, अगर उसका energy बहुत ज्यादा fluctuate करेगा. But if there is a system in which there are so many molecules, suppose 10 raised to 18 molecules, since this is proportional to 1 upon n, so if there are so many molecules, the mean fractional fluctuation is very less. It means कि आपके पास अभी जो actual energy है जो 100 जूल, उसमें जो फ्लक्चुएशन होगा, आप हर बार एनर्जी मेजर करोगे तो वो फ्लक्चुएशन ऑलमोस्ट नेग्लिजिबल होगा. 10⁻⁷ जूल के ऑर्डर का, अगर ये 100 जूल एनर्जी है तो 10⁻⁷ जूल के ऑर्डर का होगा. फ्लक्चुएशन। तो प्लस और माइनस 10⁻⁷ जूल में ही आपको हर बार एनर्जी मिलेगा। आप कभी भी सिस्टम का एनर्जी फाइंड करने की कोशिश करोगे, एनर्जी विल बी इन दिस रेंज। Earlier, if there were one particle, system's energy was in this range. So अगर आप जब तक माइक्रोस्कोपिक स्टडी कर रहे थे तब तक तो it is giving us a very large fluctuation, but generally our systems are of this order. और इस ऑर्डर में कैनोनिकल ensemble में एनर्जी चेंज तो हो रहा है, बट एनर्जी का फ्लक्चुएशन इज क्वाइट स्मॉल, सो वी कैन ऑलमोस्ट नेग्लेक्ट इट। सो हम कह सकते हैं कि इन केस ऑफ आइडियल गैस, the mean fractional fluctuation in canonical, if we treat ideal gas by canonical ensemble also, the mean fractional fluctuation is very small. इसका मतलब आप कोई भी सेम टेम्परेचर पे अगर आप आइडियल गैस को रखोगे तो आप हर बार उसका सेम टेम्परेचर सेम एनर्जी ही मेजर करोगे। एनर्जी में जस्ट डिपेंड ऑन टेम्परेचर, just dependent on temperature, nothing else. So this value is of the order of average value of energy only, it won't change much. तो आप जब भी मेजर करोगे वो वैल्यू उतना ही आएगा for a macroscopic system. For a microscopic system there is so much fluctuation. Okay, this is the physics part of it. इसमें मैं कहना क्या चाहता था, जस्ट आई वांट टू रिकैप अगेन। आपके पास एक सिस्टम है वेयर देयर इज ओनली वन पार्टिकल, आपके पास एक सिस्टम है वेयर देयर आर सो मेनी पार्टिकल्स। नाउ यू आर मेजरिंग एनर्जी, यू हैव सम मशीन टू मेजर एनर्जी, यू आर मेजरिंग एनर्जी इन बोथ द सिस्टम्स। तो हमने थियोरेटिकली प्रेडिक्ट किया कि इस सिस्टम में जब आप एनर्जी मेजर करोगे तो एनर्जी का वैल्यू हर बार अलग अलग आएगा, हर बार अलग अलग आएगा। एक्चुअल में अगर सिस्टम का एनर्जी 100 जूल है, ठीक है, तो एनर्जी विल वेरी फ्रॉम 18 जूल, मतलब आपने मेजर किया कभी तो कभी 18 जूल आया, कभी 20 जूल आया, इट विल बी लाइक दैट, 18 जूल, 20 जूल, 25 जूल और 125 जूल और 180 जूल। It will be in any of these numbers, it will be in a range of energy. You won't find a good specific number for energy, but if the system is macroscopic, there are so many particles, then you will find this energy always this number or very small error in this number. So energy remains almost constant whenever you measure it. So energy does not fluctuate. The measurement of energy will not fluctuate at all if you talk about canonical ensemble and measure things with canonical ensemble. So this is what I wanted to tell. Okay, if you measure things with canonical ensemble, if you are measuring, suppose for ideal gas, then ideal gases energy will not change. For different systems this might be different, but for ideal gas this is same. So for ideal gas the average energy's value will be always conserved. Okay, so it's total energy which is dependent on T only. So if you change T, then only you change energy. So for that the energy is always the same, it will not fluctuate at all. You can say that practically it is zero fluctuation. So fluctuation in energy is very less in canonical ensemble, and that's why we prefer canonical ensemble over the other ensembles, because fluctuation in energy is less. Okay, but Gibbs did not stop at this point. Any questions till this point? Okay, so Gibbs did not stop at that point, but what Gibbs did is he invented another ensemble where the particles were also exchanging with the system. So it is just the same, consists of open conducting systems. Here the walls are rigid so that the volumes will not change, but they are permeable walls because the particles can go from here to there. They are open systems, so walls are permeable, and the walls are also conducting. So the walls are rigid, permeable, and conducting. So if you imagine so many mental copies of the system, imagine it like this, that all the systems are sitting connected to each other, and between those two systems the wall is permeable and it is rigid, volume will not change, but the particles can go from here to there. Okay, and particles can go from here to there, and the walls are conducting, so energy also can go from here to there. It is known as canonical ensemble. So it is open, it is consisting of open conducting systems. Okay, and for each system mu, v, and t is fixed. Okay, so now there is this one guy, new guy called mu. What is mu? Mu is called chemical potential. Can anybody tell me what is chemical potential? What is your understanding on chemical potential? Okay. Have you heard this word before in any classes, chemical potential, or this is the first time for you guys? So I can explain accordingly. Kindly tell me this. Oh, all of you are sleeping, or many of you are sleeping, or is there anybody in
I
the
think
meeting? Or?
probably it's first time.
Okay, probably it's first time.
Yes, sir. Probably first time.
Why everybody is telling probably first time? Okay, you are not even sure that you have heard this word or not ago before, right? So you
Yes,
are
sir.
okay. Now I got this. Now I was in this. I I I happen to be in the state sometimes where you are right now, where we cannot even say that we have heard this word or not. Yes. So I am with you guys. Okay. So this chemical potential, it is potential. So it is some kind of energy. But what is chemical potential? If there is a system, let's suppose there is a system. So there is a system of gas. Now, if you will add one more particle into the system, if you will add one more particle into the system, it is not ideal gas, so it is interacting. If you will add interacting means that there is a potential energy of this whole system. सबका mass है अपना अपना, उस mass की वजह से system का कुछ potential energy है. Now, if you will add one more particle into the system, its energy, the potential energy of this system will increase definitely. And this number shows you how much energy of the system increases if you will add one particle. So it is not our energy, but it is free energy. But let's take the general energy. For strictly speaking, this is not general energy, our considerations of energy. It is free energy, gives free energy. But for our case, let's take this to understand this. Let's take this as energy. So if you will add one more particle into the system, its energy will definitely increase. So mu suggests you the change in energy when you will add one more particle into the system. It suggests you that change in energy. Now, if there are two systems, if there are two systems, and both of the systems are having different chemical potentials, mu1 and mu2, then if you will remove this partition somehow, or just make holes in this partitions, it is partition. But if you will somehow make the holes in this partition, then the number of particles will flow from here to there. These particles flows because there is some kind of potential that we call chemical potential, which is responsible for the flow of particles. So why these particles are flowing? Because suppose in this system, when one particle is entering, its energy goes down, suppose, let's say. So what will system do? When you just remove this partition, the system will try to come up in equilibrium. How will it achieve the equilibrium? If this system has low number of particles and this number has this system has high number of particles, it will send some of its particles in this place. So its energy will increase, but this system's energy will decrease because it is sending the particles outside. So eventually, this system comes in equilibrium when both of these systems are in at the same energy. So till that point, the system was sending them some particles, and there were no particles received back. Actually, there are some particles, but eventually, at the okay, I should draw it here. Okay, so there are two systems with mu1 and mu2, different chemical potentials. Now what you will do is, in the partition you make some holes. So if this system had more number of particles, it will start sending some particles into this system. So the particles are going there in this system. So this system's energy will increase and this system's energy will decrease. By energy, what do I mean? By, let's say, gravitational energy. क्योंकि बहुत सारे पार्टिकल होंगे तो अपना ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड होगा. पहले कम पार्टिकल थे तो ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड कम था इसका, अब बढ़ा. अब इसका ग्रेविटेशनल फील्ड कम हुआ क्योंकि कुछ पार्टिकल चले जा रहे हैं. तो इन दिस सिस्टम द एनर्जी डिक्रीजेस. This process will continue to happen until in equilibrium both of the systems have the same chemical potential and same energy. तो अब इस सिस्टम में आप एक भी पार्टिकल नया ऐड करोगे इस सिस्टम में, यहां से अगर यहां आएगा तो इट्स एनर्जी विल नॉट चेंज, और यहां से अगर एक पार्टिकल यहां भी गया तो भी इसका एनर्जी चेंज नहीं होगा. तो इन इक्विलिब्रियम बोथ द सिस्टम्स केमिकल पोटेंशियल विल बी इक्वल, बिकॉज अब दोनों सिस्टम का एनर्जी इक्वल हो गया है. तो पार्टिकल एक इधर से इधर आए या इधर से इधर जाए, उनका एनर्जी चेंज नहीं होने वाला, सिस्टम इज इन इक्विलिब्रियम एट सेम केमिकल पोटेंशियल। तो अब इसका नया बाहर से पार्टिकल डालोगे तो इट इज गुड, बट अंदर अंदर पार्टिकल जब घूमते रहेंगे तब इसका एनर्जी चेंज नहीं होने वाला। Okay, this is what the concept of chemical potential is. In general, electric potential, what is that? Electric potential में एक साइड बहुत सारे, suppose there is a positive charge and there is a negative charge, so this produces some electric potential। तो यहाँ पे आप कोई चार्ज रखोगे तो इधर से उधर जाएगा, उस पर फोर्स लगेगा। वैसे ही है केमिकल पोटेंशियल, कि केमिकल पोटेंशियल के चेंज की वजह से there is a force on the particle to move। और जब केमिकल पोटेंशियल पूरे सिस्टम का इक्वल हो जाएगा तब पार्टिकल्स चलेंगे तो सही, बट बिकॉज ऑफ देम द सिस्टम्स एनर्जी वॉन्ट गेट अफेक्टेड। तो जब सिस्टम इक्विलिब्रियम में आ जाता है पूरा का पूरा, तब उनकी केमिकल पोटेंशियल दोनों के सेम हो जाते हैं। दिस इज द केस। ओके, सो दिस इज व्हाई द टर्म केमिकल पोटेंशियल केम, because this is useful in chemistry, as we can easily see. This is useful in chemistry because in chemistry there are two chemicals and you try to mix those two chemicals and all those things. So this is where the word chemical potential came. Okay, so you have a system which is interacting with its surroundings. Okay, it is open, it is conducting, so it can change the particles as well. But you are considering ensemble of these systems, so there are so many similar systems. All of the systems are specified by mu, v and t. Why I'm specifying them by mu? Because number of particles, now I cannot specify them by total number of particles because total number of particles will change. But I am specifying that any particle, all of the systems are in thermal equilibrium, so that any particle goes from here to there or comes from here to here, its energy of this individual system will not change because of particles. Energy will get transferred because of the temperature, but not because of the particles. Its energy will not change because particles coming and going. So overall, the energy of the systems are not fixed because there is all the systems are at same temperature, and to keep them at the same temperature, energies are flowing from here to there. Energies are constantly flowing from here to there in the system, just as we used to think about in canonical ensemble also. But here, the flow of particle will not affect the energy, because the flow of particle will is such that the chemical potential is such that it is same in all this mentally identically prepared systems. So the flow of particles will not affect the energy. Only the flow because of heat or temperature will affect the energy. Energy will go from here to there, no problem. Okay, so temperature is constant, chemical potential is constant, so that particles go from here to there, but the system's energy will not change because of particles going here to there. And the volume is also fixed for each system. So for each system, it is the similar case. So this is known as grand canonical ensemble. The outer wall, we consider it that this whole ensemble is not interacting with its surroundings. So this whole wall is, you can consider it as non-conducting, impermeable and rigid walls. So this whole ensemble is inside a case of microcanonical ensemble, but there are different systems which are in contact with each other. So they are forming a grand canonical ensemble, but they are not in contact with the surroundings. This is the grand canonical ensemble. What do we want to know after studying grand canonical ensemble? Surprise, surprise. We want to study the same thing, that probability that the system can be in state alpha with specific energy E alpha. We want to know this only. Okay. So this is our purpose. To achieve that purpose, it is the similar derivation, similar procedure. So I'll not be spending so much time here. Okay, so there are two ways to achieve that purpose. We want to find the state of this system. Then one way is to consider it in contact with so many other systems, and in all the other systems you can have the total energy of this complete box as epsilon. Total number of particles of this complete box is capital N, and there are m identical systems. उसके अंदर energy और particles change होते रहेंगे, and you can study the probability कि इस state का alpha E alpha energy state में होने का probability कितना है. You can study that. But there is another way where you can think about all of these states as a single state, and you can consider, because there are so many states and in each state there are so many particles, so there are infinitely many particles in infinitely many states. So you can consider them as a reservoirs for common temperature T and common chemical potential mu. So the outer system also supplies you the common temperature T and common chemical potential mu. So all of these systems you can consider as a single system, which you can consider as a reservoir for chemical potential and temperature T. Okay, and now you can study the statistics between this interaction only, instead of studying the interaction between all of these systems. Just study, take all of these systems as identical in one system. You can study the interaction between these two systems only. As we did last time, the derivation of this part is given in your book, but it is not in your syllabus. So I will be teaching you this way of doing the problem. Both of these ways lead us to the same p alpha, the same value of p alpha, but we will be studying this. In this also, just I kept the page from the last time. So there are two systems. Our system is system A. There is a reservoir of particles and heat. This is called the reservoir of particles and heat. So particles also can go from here to there, as many particles as we want. So many particles can go from here to there or here to there. Its number of particles, the system A prime's number of particles won't change. Its temperature won't change. It can go from here to there. Okay, so walls of A and A prime are free to exchange energy and particles. And this complete system, you can consider it as microcanonical ensemble. Its total energy E naught is constant. And at this time, its total number of particles of A plus number of particles of A prime are also constant. We can tell this number N naught. Here, this number is different from the last time. सो वहां पे क्या था कि एनर्जी इस पूरे बॉक्स का कांस्टेंट था, हमने वही कंसीडर किया था क्योंकि इन दोनों में अपने अपने में नंबर ऑफ पार्टिकल्स तो वैसे ही कांस्टेंट थे. बट व्हाट वी आर डूइंग हियर इज इन बोथ ऑफ देम आल्सो नंबर ऑफ पार्टिकल्स कैन चेंज. So number of particles of A and A prime total is constant. Number of particles can go from here to there. They can be different, but overall this is our case where total number of particles cannot go outside from this black wall. Okay, so this is the same derivation, so I'm not spending much time in it. So large number of microstates exist corresponding to energy E naught and number of particles N naught, as we learned in microcanonical ensemble. Each and every point corresponds to a energy, corresponds to a microstate. So many microstates exist. This system A is really small compared to A prime, so you can consider this whole system as only A prime. You can consider this, approximate this whole system as A prime, and A is a very small element. So A prime is a very big system, A is a very small system. So we are talking about the microstate of A, not A prime, but you can approximate that this whole system, there is no A. We will be approximating that in a moment. We did it last time as well. So A is very smaller, very small than A prime. A is very small than A prime. And there are large number of microstates corresponding to the same corresponding to this energy and this many number of particles, and we will call this number of microstates omega naught, just as we did last time. And all these microstates are equally probable, so probability for each microstate of A prime, because it is actually ensemble is A plus A prime, but we are just telling because A is very small, so probability of all these microstates are equally probable, so probability for each microstates of A prime is omega naught. For specific microstates of A, now we are back into our game. For specific microstates of A, okay, so yes, now for specific microstates of A, what happens is, for particular E alpha and N alpha, E alpha and A alpha of A, मतलब कि A सिस्टम के अंदर जब A सिस्टम E alpha एनर्जी स्टेट में होगा और उसके पास N alpha नंबर ऑफ पार्टिकल्स होंगे, then there are many microstates of A prime corresponding to the same microstate of A. For particular E alpha and N alpha of A, there exists many microstates of A prime. Of A prime. Just as we did it last time, we considered कि अगर 4 बॉक्स है और उसमें इस बॉक्स में एनर्जी कांस्टेंट रखना है, तो you can fill these 3 boxes and total energy भी कांस्टेंट रखना है, but you can fill these 3 boxes in quite many ways. So there exists many microstates of A prime corresponding to the same value of E alpha and N alpha of A. And let us call this number of microstates of A prime. Let's call this number as omega alpha, because it is alpha states of A, as E naught minus E alpha and N naught minus N alpha. So this is what we did last time as well, but here N alpha is something new. यहाँ तक अगर कोई भी डाउट है, पीछे वाला डेरिवेशन कुछ भी याद नहीं है ऐसा, तो आई डोंट सपोज कि होगा, बट देयर आल्सो वी डिड सिमिलर कैलकुलेशन, एग्जैक्टली सिमिलर कैलकुलेशन. व्हाट वी डिड वाज कि टोटल एनर्जी E naught plus E alpha, total energy E A plus E A prime plus E alpha equal to constant, and that was equal to E naught, and that's why we wanted to find out the energy of A prime, which was equal to E naught minus E alpha. And corresponding to this energy of E A prime, there are many microstates. Here we are also talking about number of particles. So number of particles of A prime are equal to total number of particles minus number of particles in A. And corresponding to both of these, there are so many microstates and we don't know how many. So we just take that number as gamma alpha. We just give it some symbol, gamma alpha, omega alpha, sorry, omega alpha. We just give it some symbol. And now let's do some probability calculation. So probability that the system stays in state alpha is omega alpha E naught minus E alpha and N naught minus N alpha divided by omega naught. If you will do some more calculations, so you can write it as e raised to ln this number. It is just a similar calculation, there are few places where there is a typing error in your book, so I'll be notifying you. This calculation is not completely given in your book, so just kindly follow my notes. It is just similar calculation, just as we did last time. So this is P alpha. Okay, this is P alpha. Now what we want to do is we want to expand this function just as we did last time, but here we will be using two-dimensional Taylor series. Let me show you that. F of x plus dx, if you have an f of y plus dy, you have delta y. Then you can write this as f of x plus delta x del f by del x plus f of y plus delta y del f by del y. You can have it like this. Okay, there is no f of x, so there is f of xy. Sorry, yes. So it is the Taylor series of two variable functions. So it is delta y del f by del y, plus there are higher order terms which we are not considering. This is called the Taylor series of many variable functions, multivariable functions. And if you don't know this, just you need to know this much only. It is nothing else. Okay. If you want to know the proof or something, kindly contact somebody who is studying mathematics right now, because it is there in their syllabus. Taylor series of multivariable functions. And now you can expand this ln of omega alpha E naught minus E alpha. Since E alpha and N alpha are very small, because A system is very small, so their energy, its energy and its number of particles will also be very small. So you can expand it in the similar manner. So you can write it ln omega alpha E naught N naught plus E alpha del ln omega alpha. I'm just writing it as omega alpha del E naught plus this N alpha del ln omega alpha upon del N naught. This is the expression for this term which we are going to apply, but there we did something else. We called this number as beta, and we will call in this case this number as minus alpha, not plus alpha, but we'll call this number, let me see, not making any mistakes. Okay, we will call this number as plus alpha, sorry, we'll call this number alpha. We'll call this number alpha and this number beta, just as we did there. We called this beta, but here new term came which we will call alpha. And if we put all of these things into that equation of probability, then P equal to e raised to ln omega alpha will be there plus beta. Okay, this term I think we called it minus, since there is, oh, I'm sorry, there is minus in both of these things. Okay, so this number we will call plus alpha, this number we will call plus beta, or let me see, yes, I'm correct. This number is alpha and this number is beta. We'll call it like this. And we will, if we are, when we are back to problem, I'm just deriving it super fast because we know this. We did this kind of calculation in last time as well. If you didn't understood last time, kindly ask me when I'm giving time. Just right now I'm giving time. I'll be explaining it all over again if you don't understand it, if I'm going too fast, because this mathematics is minus beta E alpha minus alpha N alpha. Okay, and this is equal to some constant, because this number is constant, times e raised to minus beta e alpha minus alpha n alpha, and constant times this. So let's do some normalization of this probability, and if you do normalization, you will get from normalization, just as we did last time, what we will get is, we will get that this constant is going to be equal to 1 upon sigma over all alpha states e raised to minus beta e alpha minus alpha n alpha. We are calling this number just alpha. Okay, so this constant comes out to be this, and we can write this into the formula for probability. So in place of this constant, we can write something like this. So therefore, probability that the system is in microstate, system A is in microstate alpha with energy E alpha is equal to e raised to minus beta E alpha minus alpha n alpha upon sigma alpha e raised to minus beta E alpha minus alpha n alpha. Okay, and in this there are two parameters. One is beta. Beta is 1 by kt, which is not derived in your syllabus, but in the next semester I hope that you will derive this term. So beta is 1 by kt, and alpha is minus beta times mu. So alpha is written as minus beta times mu. Also, you don't have the derivation of this part right now in this semester, but you will derive it in next semester. I'm sure it is in your syllabus. I checked it. So I'm sure it is there in your syllabus. So alpha is minus beta times mu. Alpha is not plus beta times mu, but alpha is minus beta times mu. So if you put both of these guys together in this equation, you will get something. What you will get? P of alpha equal to e raised to minus beta e alpha plus mu beta and alpha. In place of alpha, I'm placing minus mu beta. So it is plus mu beta to n alpha divided by sigma alpha e raised to minus beta e alpha plus mu beta n alpha. So this guy, the denominator, as usual, is called partition function, but it is called grand partition function. So phi equal to sigma alpha e raised to minus beta e alpha plus mu beta n alpha is called grand partition function. This is a partition function. Again, it is helpful in calculating, mathematically helpful in calculating so many parameters when you are using grand canonical ensemble to calculate a few things. So this is known as grand partition function. And in your book, the notation is Z, but since Z is already there, so this is also a standard notation. I will write it as phi everywhere. I will not write it as Z, because there is something else called Z, and it is small z. E raised to minus beta mu or e raised to alpha is known as small z, and we call it fugacity. Or chemistry students knows this as chemical activity. Sorry. Or fugacity or chemical activity. What is its physical? Okay, now let me stop for a moment and write it. E raised to minus mu beta is, or e raised to alpha is known as fugacity, and this denominator is known as grand partition function. So I can write p alpha in terms of all of this, and then I will stop for a question and I will explain a few things. So I just want to complete the mathematics fast, and this is the last section of the mathematics. So it is e raised to minus beta e alpha into here e raised to mu beta is written as z. So e raised to mu beta is written as 1 by z, and there is n alpha. So it is z raised to n alpha. Okay, I'm missing out on something. I'm just a second. Okay, no, it is correct. So I'm not writing it in terms of z because I think there is a typing error in your book of writing it there. But you can always write this in terms of z. But what I did was I wrote p alpha is equal to e raised to minus beta e alpha into e raised to mu beta n alpha divided by phi. So this is how you can write it. P alpha. I just want to write it like this. Or you can write it as e raised to minus beta E alpha small z. This is small z, which is fugacity, z raised to minus n alpha upon phi. This is also similar expression. Now I'm stopping. I just used all the mathematics and now I'm talking about these terms. Okay, so this is the probability. What is P alpha? I'm writing it into words. Probability that system A is in state A prime, is in state A prime. System A is in state alpha with energy E alpha. Okay. Now this theory is over. I am giving you in homework to study this theory, fluctuation in grand canonical ensemble. I will be sending you the notes today. This is in your homework. It is really small theory. It is not even 2 pages of this. Just 1 page only is there. Only 1 page is there. So I'm just giving you it in homework. I'll be sending you notes as well. My notes and the book is there, because in book there are 2-3 points where there is an typing error. So I'll be sending you my notes as well in your Moodle, and it is just a theory of 1 page, which is your homework for CII2. Or if we will find any slot during our thermodynamics, we will cover this really small topic. No, not to worry. Okay. Okay, it is just 1 page, but here let's stop for this. This is the probability. This is the grand partition function, which you will use in many cases in future, next semester, because it is in your syllabus in next semester. And what is fugacity? It is known as chemical activity of the system. Chemical activity of the system. So activity, what is activity? How much active the system is. You know it by fugacity. Okay, so this small z, which is known as fugacity, you can know from it that how much active the system is. It is known as activity of the system. So if mu of the system is very high, it means if you add just one particle, the system's energy increases by very much amount. System's energy increases by very much amount. If mu is very high, this fugacity is very low. And if mu is very low, this fugacity is very high or equal to 1. If mu is 0, then fugacity is equal to 1. So the system is chemically not active at all. So active, very active. But if mu is very high, the system is not active that much, because the energy of the system will change so much if you just add one particle. So the system is not active to that much change in energy. So that's why if fugacity is high, the system is more active. Fugacity is low, the system is less active. You can understand its physical significance from this formula. Okay, now I'm stopping here to know the doubts from your end. And if you did not remember anything from the canonical ensemble derivation, I did it exactly same. So if somebody of you followed me yesterday, you will be thinking why he is doing this again today. Okay, or for somebody of you who did not follow me yesterday, you will be thinking that what he is doing every day. And it looks like similar things. It looks like similar, but it is not. What is, तो जो मतलब रोज मुझे फॉलो कर रहे हैं वो सोच रहे हैं सर ये एक का एक काम रोज क्यों कर रहे हैं, और जो नहीं फॉलो कर रहे होंगे वो सोचेंगे कि सर एक का रोज क्या कर रहे हैं एक का एक सेम चीज. So it is just similar. I want your questions at this point. So the students are still there. This is the, yes.
Sir, in